minutes.
We can start.
Great. Thank you very much. Welcome to everyone that is joining us today. I see the numbers are going up as people are still joining. Would like to start our session today, which is the titled Horizon Europe under the from the Africa Initiative 3, which is focusing on South Africa today. I have esteemed guests who have joined us for the session. And I'd first start by introducing myself as the moderator for the day. My name is Yudi Mabuza. I'm the Senior Science and Innovation Representative based in Brussels. I'm seconded by the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. And I'd like to welcome you all, and I will ask the official welcoming and opening remarks to be led by our ambassador, Honorable Thokozile Xasa, who is the ambassador here at the South African mission in the European Union. She'll be followed after with a video recording of Ms. Ninke Baseman, who is the head of international cooperation at DG Research and Innovation from the European Commission. And the last opening remarks will also be done by the deputy head of the delegation, Mr. Pencho Garrido, who is also joined us virtually in the meeting. With all further ado, I'd like to ask Ambassador Xasa to give us her opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Yudi, our senior representative and our expert when it comes to research, innovation, and technology from South Africa. The colleagues who are here from DG Commission for Research and Innovation, Deputy Head of the delegation from DZA, and all colleagues who are participants, a very good day to you. I would like to thank you for joining this meeting today so that we can participate in this information session that is focusing on Horizon Europe's Africa Initiative 3. As Ambassador of South Africa to Belgium, Luxembourg, and the European Union, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this session that is dedicated to exploring the new prospects for science, technology, and innovation, STI cooperation between the EU and South Africa. We are very proud that this STI cooperation is one of our flagships as part of our South Africa-EU partnership. And as the outcome of our summit in March, it is where we also focused and also undertook to ensure that we strengthen this collaboration, and South Africa stressed the value it attaches to its participation in the EU Horizon 20 framework program. Today marks a significant moment as we delve into the launch of the Horizon Europe Work Program 2025, which includes a committed focus on deepening EU-Africa cooperation in research and innovation. The funding forms part of the Africa Initiative 3 package, launched as part of the EU Horizon Europe 2025 Work Program on 14 May 2025. A key component of this is the Africa Initiative 3, a program through which European Union has launched 500 million, which is about 10 billion in our currency, funding program, which is specifically to support Africa-led research and innovation. This initiative will channel funding through 24 calls for proposals under the Horizon Europe Work Programme 2025. Building on the positive outcomes of the previous phases, the Africa Initiative 3 is designed to boost EU-Africa cooperation and research and development, and reflects a strong political commitment under the EU innovation agenda. The funding is also earmarked for projects supporting critical areas such as green transition, health, and innovation. More specifically, the Africa Initiative 3 calls are grouped under 5 key themes: the public health, green transition, innovation and technology, capacities for science, and lastly, cross-cutting issues. These calls aim to accelerate the translation of scientific knowledge into action around shared global challenges in Africa and Europe. They are designed to encourage participation of African institutions and researchers, fostering partnerships to address shared challenges like climate change adaptation, clean energy, sustainable agriculture, and digital innovation. This event therefore holds a specific focus on South Africa, highlighting updates on South Africa's participation in Horizon Europe and the opportunities presented by Africa Initiative 3. South African researchers and institutions are expected to take part in the projects funded under this initiative, and we look forward to South Africa playing a significant role, building on past participation where African organizations from over 40 countries were engaged in the Africa Initiative 1. The importance of science and technology and innovation for development is a significant aspect of the bilateral cooperation between EU and South Africa, as I had indicated earlier on, and is driven by shared interest to address global challenges. South Africa attaches a great value to this participation, and we have demonstrated considerable participation in Horizon Europe with 143 project grants, 196 participations by South African institutions that were recorded in the first 3 years in 2021 until 2024. Discussions at the 17th meeting of the EU-South Africa Joint Science and Technology Cooperation Committee reaffirmed the commitment to enhance collaboration in key research areas, including those relevant to the Africa Initiative 3 themes, such as climate change, renewable energy and clean technologies, public health, and pandemic preparedness, digital transformation, food and water security. Initiatives to increase the engagement of historically disadvantaged institutions, early career researchers, and women in science were also emphasized. The Africa Initiative 3 is not merely a funding program, it is an opportunity to strengthen research and innovation ecosystems, support innovation-led sustainable socio-economic development, and deliver shared solutions to global and regional challenges, as well as aligning with our shared vision for prosperity and progress. In conclusion, therefore, we are excited about the prospects that this initiative brings for enhancing EU-South Africa and EU-Africa research and innovation cooperation, as well as its potential to translate research and innovation into tangible positive impact on the ground. Thank you very much, therefore, for this opportunity. We're hoping for fruitful interactions throughout the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Ambassador Thokozile Xasa. We appreciate these great remarks. And without further ado, I'd like to ask for the remarks from Ms. Ninke Baseman. There's no sound?
You appear to be muted.
Yes.
Ahmed, could we please have this?
Unmute. It's still on mute. We can't hear it. We tested it. It was working. Share with sound.
It's still on mute, Ahmed.
Did the same?
Yeah, we cannot hear. It's still very muted.
Your Excellency Ambassador Thokozile Kaza, dear Deputy Director General Dan Dutoit, dear Chief Director Vinnie Pillay, and dear Ambassador Ms. Sandra Kramer, and dear Deputy Head of the EU Delegation, Mr. Pencho Garrido Ruiz, dear researchers and innovators, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you with my colleagues to today's important event focusing on the cooperation on research and innovation between the EU and South Africa, particularly within the framework program Horizon Europe. Today, we will also present the new Horizon Europe Work Programme 2025 and its Africa Initiative 3 that aim to strengthen collaborations between South African, and European researchers and innovators. South Africa is a strategic partner to the EU in the African continent. In this year of historical G20 chairmanship, I salute South Africa's leadership in this multilateral forum, also in its work stream pertaining to research and innovation. And the EU and South Africa hold a very vibrant and productive cooperation on research and innovation, which is governed under a bilateral science and technology agreement in force since 1997. We also collaborate very well, closely and very well in our dynamic multilateral framework, the African Union, European Union High-Level Policy Dialogue on Science, Technology and Innovation, in which South Africa plays a key role of leading by example in the co-creation of policies and their implementation. The current political mainstay of our cooperation is the 10-year AU-EU Innovation Agenda that fosters the translation of research and innovation into tangible products, businesses, services, and jobs in Africa. And Horizon Europe and its Africa initiatives are, together with the Global Gateway initiatives, the two main instruments with which the EU contributes to the implementation of the AU-EU Innovation Agenda. Over the past decades, we have achieved impressive results by cooperating in different areas of research and innovation, from public health, including in the European and developing countries clinical trials partnership, personalized medicine and beyond, food and nutrition security and sustainable agriculture, biodiversity and bioeconomy, which I understand was discussed just this week as part of the G20 engagements, oceans and marine research, climate change and sustainable energy, innovation and technology, open science and research mobility through the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions. South Africa is the top performing African country in Horizon Europe for both budget share and participations. Currently, the average success rate of proposals coming from South Africa is 22%, which is higher than the average success rate of EU countries of 19%. So this is very impressive. Of course, it is also important to focus on qualitative aspects and ensure that South Africa's participation in Horizon Europe is as widespread and inclusive as possible. For this, we continue to monitor the participation also of historically disadvantaged universities, where we started running in 2023 dedicated information sessions on Horizon Europe and the Africa initiatives. And we will continue to do so this year, probably in the month of August. So yes, please consider today's event as one of a series of engagements that aim not only to provide information on Horizon Europe Work Programme 2025 and its Africa Initiative 3, but also to enhance capacity and foster collaborations among researchers within South Africa, within Africa, and at the Africa-Europe interface. Importantly, today you will hear about the new calls for proposals of this year that are part of this Africa Initiative 3. These are specifically 24, amounting to an overall budget of 500 million euros, addressing topics such as public health and epidemic preparedness, food security, agriculture, agroecology, biodiversity, climate change and sustainable energy, raw materials value chains for a digital and green transition, generative AI, and cross-cutting issues such as migration and climate, research security, cultural and historical heritage, among many others. As you will see, the earliest deadlines for proposal submissions are set for early September. So you do have a few months to prepare your consortia, shape your proposal, and make a compelling submission. I therefore wish you a very productive workshop, and I look forward to seeing our cooperation under Horizon Europe, and thanks to the Africa Initiative, growing even stronger as we implement together the EU Innovation Agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the great recorded message. We will now ask the Deputy Head of the Delegation, Mr. Felicio Garrido Pencho. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Udi. You pronounced my name perfectly, so thank you very much also for that. And a good afternoon to the over 600 participants that are joining us online this afternoon. It is a real pleasure to be here with you. And it's really great, fantastic to see the interest that this webinar is eliciting. It's really energizing and encouraging. I would like, first of all, show a particular appreciation to Ambassador Casa and Eudi, Ms. Mamuso, in the South Africa Embassy in Brussels, as well as the colleagues that are here with me from the Department of Science and Innovation in Pretoria. And of course, my colleagues at the European Commission's Directorate General for Research and Development, and my own colleagues here in Pretoria at the EU delegation. Ambassador Casa was saying indeed that our leaders, President Ramaphosa and President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and President of the Council, Antonio Costa, met a couple of months ago in March 2025 in Cape Town to hold our bilateral summit. What our leaders agreed was to deepen and expand our strategic partnership based on a very solid bedrock of common values of democracy, of human rights, and of multilateralism. And nothing embodies this principle as South Africa's G20 slogan for its presidency: diversity, equality, and sustainability. What makes this possible is the convergence of our respective agendas around three key elements for the future of our societies. The first one is decarbonization and our common commitment to net zero emissions by 2050. The second one is the need to enhance competitiveness and to boost economic growth and job creation. And the third one is the move towards greater strategic autonomy by reducing dependencies and diversifying supply chains. So to pursue these strategic objectives, our leaders agreed on an ambitious agenda of collaboration in strategic value chains. And these are vaccines, green hydrogen, minerals, and electric batteries. Now, when you see these value chains, an essential aspect for their development will be the role that science, technology, and innovation will play, and in particular, our collaboration through the Horizon Europe Framework Program. Here, South Africa has known better than any other partner how to avail of the opportunities offered by Horizon Europe, both in terms of the quality of the research projects submitted, as well as in terms of funding. In areas as diverse as public health, climate change, digital innovation, sustainable agriculture, minerals, or the clean technologies. And today, as we mark the start of the Horizon Europe Work Programme 2025 with a dedicated Africa Initiative 3. And we do so with greater ambition and resources. 24 call for proposals with a combined budget of 500 million euro across vital thematic areas. Greater ambition also in the level of inclusivity and representation. We will continue and we will double down on our engagement with historically disadvantaged institutions, because we want to ensure that science is expanded across the research community. As I look forward, I see that we still have a few months before the first deadline of early September to submit proposals. So I very warmly encourage you to form a strong consortia and to put together high-quality applications, and guided always by the principles that nurture our strategic partnership between South Africa and the European Union. With this, I wish you a stimulating and fruitful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pencho, for the great remarks. And the key words that comes out of those opening remarks is the strong consortium. And I'd like to encourage the researchers who have joined in today to consider that link of for greater success, that they need to have the strong consortia, which would bring Europe and Africa together. Our next, I'd like to then all thank our esteemed guest speakers that have done their opening remarks, all-inclusive Ambassador Kasa, Pencho, and Ninke on her side. Really appreciate these as they are leading us and charting the path forward for our next speaker, who is going to talk to the South Africa-Europe relationship on STI and give us the broad background and our participation so far in the Horizon Europe, as well as then the Africa Initiative 3. And that will be our dear friend, my dear friend as well. We've given him his name in South Africa as Vusi. He's going to present today, which is Dr. Vincenzo Lorusso, and he's the policy officer from DG RTD. The floor is yours, Vusi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yudi. And this reminds me that I should have updated my name in the first slides. Your Excellency, Ambassador Kasa, thank you for being with us, and thank you very much for your opening remarks and for hosting us physically today within the South Africa Embassy here in Brussels. For us, it's really extraordinary, extra meaningful to be here physically in person, and as well as to see colleagues from the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation hosted within the EU delegation to South Africa in Pretoria. And a very good afternoon to the entire community online. I moved to presentation mode. I want, maybe I'll try and share again. Sometimes it does that. Maybe I'll share my entire screen. Yeah. it works. But, right. Okay, so yes, so I realized that we got 4 minutes ahead of time, so I may take advantage of them. We will start with the policy background and then move into the overview of Horizon Europe and international cooperation dimension of it. I will take this opportunity also to update colleagues on and of course participants about the participation of South Africa higher education and research institutions and also SMEs and companies in Horizon Europe so far. A very good afternoon to all stakeholders and organizations that are already involved in Horizon Europe projects that are attending today's information session. And from there, we move into perhaps what is the most interesting for the attendees of today's info session, the Africa Initiative 3, the presentation of the 24 calls for proposals that were referred to by my head of unit, Nienke Boisman, head of international cooperation within DG Research and Innovation here in Brussels. So we are operating in a context where the cooperation between the African Union and European Union in research and innovation is becoming increasingly meaningful and strategic to the overall Africa-Europe partnership. This was also summarized very elegantly in the joint communiqué of the 21st of May of last week, really, outcome of the third EU-AU ministerial, in which the cooperation on research and innovation and also cooperation on higher education were reflected in several passages. From the EU side, Africa is indeed a strategic partner when it comes to the partnership on research and innovation. And this is reflected particularly in two key communications, in two key publications. They are the Comprehensive EU Strategy with Africa of 2020, which proposes to scale up the EU's academic and scientific cooperation with Africa, with a view to creating prosperous knowledge societies in both continents, and the 2021 publication or communication, The Global Approach to Research and Innovation, which foresees a particular openness vis-à-vis African countries from the European side towards countries that indeed wish to thrive as knowledge-based economies and therefore accelerate their sustainable and inclusive socio-economic development. Now, for a cooperation on science, technology, and innovation to be effective, we need to be operating in a so-called political dialogue. And when it comes to the political dialogue on science, technology, and innovation between the African Union and the European Union, this is the so-called high-level policy dialogue, HLPD, on science, technology, and innovation. It was established in 2010 in Tripoli, Libya, and it's the policy framework where the long-term priorities and indeed the policy orientation are defined together jointly by both the African Union and European Union. And when I refer to the unions, I refer as much as to the member states of the unions, South Africa included. Of course, as mentioned by Nienke Boisman, South Africa is leading by example within the high-level policy dialogue by co-creating the policy and providing indeed co-implementation tools, initiatives, and instruments. So as part of this policy dialogue, we organized the first ever and the only so far ministerial meeting of ministers of research and innovation of both the unions in July 2020, during which the 4 priority areas of this cooperation were defined. They are, as you can see here, public health, green transition, innovation and technology, and capacities for science. This is, of course, of vital importance because you would imagine that all the instruments that are cascaded from this decision, including the Africa Initiative 3 of Horizon Europe, will need to take these priority areas into account, and we need to really make sure these priority areas are supported, are really pinpointed by dedicated calls for proposals and instruments and programs. So for green transition, I'd like to highlight that this macro area is then, groups 2 other priority areas, namely the food and nutrition security and sustainable agriculture one, also known under the acronym of FNSSA, and the other priority area of climate change and sustainable energy, known under the acronym of CCSE. Now, in this first ever ministerial meeting of July 2020, next to defining jointly the 4 priority areas of this cooperation, the second main achievement was the conception of the so-called AU-EU Innovation Agenda. The African Union-European Union Innovation Agenda really comes from the joint ambition to do more from a policy point of view, and of course with the instruments that go with that, to support the translation of research and innovation into more tangible a positive impact on the ground, as was referenced to by Ambassador Casa earlier on. So namely, more products, more services, more enterprises, businesses and jobs in both Africa and Europe deriving from support to research and innovation. So with this ambition, the so-called AU-EU Innovation Agenda Working Group reports into the high-level policy dialogue started preparing this agenda, which was then published in a draft version to be discussed with stakeholders throughout the year 2022. And this agenda included at the time and eventually included in the adopted version 4 objectives that you see in here: make it real, generate impact by design, strengthen people, communities and institutions, and learn, monitor and scale it up. These 4 objectives are articulated into short, medium and long-term actions across these 4 priority areas: public health, green transition, innovation and technology, and capacities for science, plus the additional area of cross-cutting issues, which are very much overarching across the 4 aforementioned priority areas. Now, we haven't got the time to go into the details of these actions in these priority areas, but what I would like to highlight is that Horizon Europe, the EU framework program, which is the biggest public funding instrument to support research and innovation at global level, to which, of which the Africa Initiative is part, they are main contributors to the implementation of these actions of the EU Innovation Agenda. And indeed, from the EU side, the 2 main instruments from the European Commission side that are indeed put in place to support the implementation of the innovation agenda are Horizon Europe with its 2 particular initiatives, Africa initiatives and Mediterranean initiatives, and also the Global Gateway Africa-Europe Investment Package, to which also Deputy Head of EU Delegation Pension, whom I salute, was also referring in his introductory remarks. Of course, you can imagine that the drafting, for those of you who are hearing this for the first time, the drafting of the innovation agenda, as well as its finalization, really took into account the mapping of gaps and needs coming from the research and innovation ecosystems, as much as in Africa as in Europe. And with that, South Africa higher education and research and innovation ecosystems, innovation hubs, business support organization played a major role in this stakeholder dialogue. So I also wish to indeed greet all the organizations who've been part of this dialogue, and of course, from the agencies of the government, as well as universities, and also innovation and incubation ecosystems. All right, so when it comes to the EU international cooperation, research and innovation, from where indeed the cooperation angle of Horizon Europe derives, these are the guiding principles really that are crystallized in the so-called EU Global Approach to Research and Innovation of 2021. Commitment to openness, observance of values and principles of research and innovation, including academic freedom, gender equality, pursuit of a level playing field and reciprocity, pulling together global efforts to tackle global challenges. Indeed, this is in the spirit of the AU Innovation Agenda, which really focuses on the points of convergences of the 2 unions and really focuses on tackling together shared challenges to lead into mutual benefits. And from that, let's get into what is Horizon Europe. So it's the biggest public funding instrument to support research and innovation. It runs over a 7-year timeframe from 2021 to 2027 for an overall budget amount of approximately 100 billion euros. That are indeed divided into the so-called work programs. Work programs have different duration of either 1 year or 2 years. We started with Work Program 2021-2022, which had the Africa Initiative 1. We then moved into Work Program 23-24, which had the Africa Initiative 2. And we're now having Work Program 2025 with its Africa Initiative 3, which will be followed by the last work program of the framework program, which indeed will be Work Program 26-2027. When it comes to its overall structure, Horizon Europe is organized in so-called pillars. I move to the next slide. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we got it. Okay. So it's organized in so-called pillars. The main focus of my presentation will be Pillar 2. Pillar 2 that is organized in clusters, in thematic clusters, to which the so-called calls for proposals belong according to the thematic areas. You see Cluster 1, Health, Cluster 2, Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society, Cluster 3, Civil Security and Post Society, Cluster 4, Digital Industry and Space, Cluster 5, Climate, Energy and Mobility, Cluster 6, Food, Bioeconomy, Natural Resources and Agriculture and Environment. I believe that the majority, if not all of the audience, the attendees of today's info session are already familiar with this concept of clusters of Horizon Europe Pillar 2. However, it's also extremely important to our cooperation, to the Africa-Europe cooperation, to the South Africa-EU cooperation on research and innovation, Pillar 1, of course, and as well as Pillar 3, which is very much related to the innovation component, the so-called European Innovation Council. But let me spend a few seconds on Pillar 1, which includes also support to early stage research through the European Research Council, as well as through the Marie-Sklodska actions and support to research infrastructures. The Marie-Sklodska actions, for those of you who are not entirely familiar with them yet, these are mobility schemes to support researchers and scientists' mobility. You will hear about it more during the presentation run by our colleague Fana from Euraxis Africa, from the Euraxis Africa team. When it comes to Horizon Europe, specifically international cooperation components of Horizon Europe, this is also based, in light of the policy strategy that I briefly presented, it's based on openness, access to EU funding, targeted international cooperation actions, and of course, safeguarding the EU's interest, in light also of the values and principles that I referred to earlier on. I wouldn't spend much time on this slide to take you then, in the interest of time, to the following one, to the ensuing one, to highlight the fact that African countries are eligible for funding coming from Horizon Europe. So research and innovation institutions and organizations from Africa, South Africa included, are indeed eligible for funding coming from Horizon Europe. They can be part of project consortia and through that benefit from EU funding within the consortia. They can also be part of consortia and not necessarily benefit from funding depending on the organization of a research proposal. But from an eligibility point of view, please indeed bear in mind that indeed organizations from Africa are indeed, or the African Union, are indeed eligible for funding. Then we have also the so-called concept of associated countries. The associated countries to Horizon Europe at the moment are 20. You see them in the list here. From Africa, for example, we have the case of Tunisia. And this means, whereas Egypt and Morocco are indeed in discussion, I mean, Egypt is close to finalize its association to the framework program. It means that associated countries can co-fund and can contribute to the funding of projects that are indeed supported through the Horizon Europe funding scheme in different percentages according indeed to the association scheme. What is important also to keep in mind is that in the cooperation dimension of Horizon Europe, of course, we're focusing on strategic thematic areas. Now, in the case of the cooperation with Africa, and therefore with the Africa Initiative 3, we're focusing on the priority areas that are defined by the AU-EU Cooperation on Research and Innovation, and also by the AU-EU Innovation Agenda. Because indeed, as I said, Africa Initiative 3 and Horizon Europe are the main instruments from the EU side to contribute to the implementation of this joint agenda. Overall, 35% of topics that are then articulated into calls for proposals of Horizon Europe emphasize international cooperation. We say are flagged for international cooperation. And as much as we have the Africa Initiative, we also have for the second time the so-called Mediterranean Initiative that fosters cooperation between European and researchers coming from Northern Africa and the Near East and the Middle East. And therefore, this brings additional opportunities for stakeholders and research organizations coming also from the northern parts of the African continent, which are also eligible for the so-called Africa Initiative 3 that I will present in a second. But before doing that, let us also take some time to go through South Africa's performance in Horizon Europe up until now. Before looking specifically at the case of South Africa, allow me to say that we monitor closely the performance, the overall performance of participation of African entities, of African Union research and innovation institutions in the overall consortium, in the overall framework program. And if we compare Horizon Europe so far with the former framework program, Horizon 2020, which ran between 2014 and 2020 indeed, we see that on average, when it comes to the yearly participation, we're seeing at least 62% more participation of African research and innovation entities in the project consortium compared to what it was the case in the previous framework program. From a budgetary point of view, we've seen an increase of 40% of budget now being allocated to African research and innovation institutions in the collaborative project consortium. Now, this is just an overall picture. We are monitoring this more closely, as Judy Mabuza was also referring to, on the fact that we monitor the outcomes and the impact of the Africa Initiative 1 of Work Programme 21-22, as well as the Africa Initiative 2 of Work Programme 23-24, and so on and so forth. We published a fact sheet on the Africa Initiative 1. You will have all the hyperlinks of the resources that I'm mentioning in the second last slide of this presentation, which will be shared with all registered participants by the Access Africa team. And we will soon be publishing also the outcome of the Africa Initiative 2. Thanks also to the hard work of my colleague Laura here next to me. What is important to keep in mind is that we're trying to make sure that from initiative to initiative, we do better in terms of ensuring a wider participation and as equitable as possible participation of European and African collaborators within the project consortium. Now, let's have a look at the performance of South Africa specifically in Horizon Europe so far compared to other African countries. This slide, and apologies for the countries that are not represented therein, only takes into account the top 28 African countries when it comes to their performance in Horizon Europe, compared to their performance over the 7-year period of Horizon 2020. By the way, the second half, the bottom half of the slide, is updated to this morning, so it's not even, it's 28th of May, apologies, not the 20th. What we can see is that clearly, in any case, South Africa is the top performing African country when it comes to a number of projects that have been retained, proposals that have been retained, and therefore they turn into projects, so 153, as well as for the numbers of proposals that have been submitted for being considered for retention to turn into granting. The success rate of South Africa is also quite impressive, 23%. These are absolute figures, so to say. I mean, the percentage is a relative one, but of course, they need to be taken into account also from a qualitative point of view in looking at who's participating from South Africa, right? If we compare South Africa's performance as we stand at the moment until now in Horizon Europe to the one of Horizon 2020, well, we can see that it's not going to take too long until South Africa reaches the 209 projects which were granted as part of the 7-year period of the previous framework program, Horizon 2020, which were the outcome of 1,062 proposals that were submitted. If we then look, I don't know, can you see my screen, colleagues?
It's gone.
You can share again.
Okay, that's out. No, it tells me meeting disconnected. Somewhere around.
Are you online? It should be still. Check.
We disconnect me.
Connected on.
You connected?
That's what the computer is saying, but
We can still hear you. That's a good sign.
at least that. Sorry, everybody, just bear with us for
Yeah,
a minute.
You can stop sharing your screen and try again.
Yeah, I just need to. Somehow I may have lost connection.
You are connected. You just have to share.
Yeah, apparently my Zoom is not responding. Does it work on my Zoom?
Yeah, that's mine. So I disconnect the internet so you can.
Try and connect it. See if it works.
Do you want to send it to me?
I could try. I'm just afraid that I've lost connectivity somewhere.
you want, I can take over just to check.
Okay.
Okay, you can see the screen, so I will try to stop sharing my screen to take. You can do it now if you have the control.
Internet. My internet is not responding.
Your internet is not responding.
It looks like we're connected, but Ahmed, we can still see your screen. Yeah.
Laura,
I can even not.
Laura, are you connected in?
Yeah, I turn out the
Turn it on again.
yeah, but it doesn't work.
If you can send me the presentation, I will share it for you, Vincenzo. I will give you the control to do that.
Yeah, it's just that somehow I lost connection to the internet. I don't know why. My computer.
From my side, it shows that it's still connected.
Sure.
Apologies, colleagues, just okay, we can see the bedroom and the people. Yes, we note that you can see us. The only challenge is that the presentation is not showing, which is the most important part, and we need to have that projected. Yes. If you could just be patient just a little bit, we're trying to sort out that technical glitch. Thank you.
Let me try and get back to you.
Mhm.
Yeah, now it seems to be working.
Is it, yeah,
Okay.
it's still on. It didn't need the password because you've been connected before, right?
Should, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a different.
You have it with you there?
Yeah, let me try. I'm sending the presentation. And then
Oh, we can put it from this end. Okay. Yeah, there's people who are asking for the recording of the session.
Yeah, the meeting is being streamed on YouTube, so
Yes. Yeah. The meeting will be available on YouTube. It's live, being streamed live. Yes, thank you so much, Ahmed. Okay.
yeah, I think it's safe now. I'll just leave the time because it's all presentation. So I think it should be there.
Okay.
It's just one folder. Yeah, that's. Yeah, it's there. Yeah. Maybe I come soon.
Okay, it's loading, opening 94. Okay, good. Then we are sharing it. Wait. Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Just
Thank you.
and the full screen if you want.
Okay.
Many apologies. I still don't know what happened. we'll catch up in a second. All right, so we were here indeed commenting on South Africa's performance so far in Horizon Europe compared to Horizon 2020. South Africa being the first African country in terms of performance of granted projects and submitted proposals. Now, if we look then at the overall picture, when we compare South Africa with other non-EU countries, South Africa is...
Vincenzo, we see only the first screen. So if you can move.
Oh, yeah, I know what that is. Yes, let me share the entire screen. It does it, and then I will just... That's that things. It's a big slideshow. Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And we see that South Africa is third when it comes to non-EU third countries, non-associated third countries. It's third for budget and fifth for participations. So after Switzerland and the United States, and right before Kenya and Uganda. Let's get into more specific figures. So South Africa-based research and innovation entities have so far benefited from approximately 65 million euros. We're referring to 153 signed grants projects, corresponding then to 213 participations. So it means that 213 entities are 233 participations by different entities. One entity may participate in more than once, are indeed taking part in projects, part of Horizon Europe from South Africa. And out of these 213, 75 are unique participations. So this is also something to keep in mind. The success rate is what we said, 23.45%. Of course, keeping in mind that this is the outcome of approximately 700 eligible proposals that were submitted. Looking at early stage research, South Africa is benefiting from one European Research Council Principal Investigator project, 2 EAC, European Innovation Council participations, and approximately 40 Marie-Sklodska Reactions mobility schemes. Now, again, if we compare this with Horizon 2020 and South Africa's performance in Horizon 2020, we see that from a budget point of view, South Africa's performance in Horizon Europe has already overtaken the performance in Horizon 2020 of a few millions. The number of projects that have been granted so far is still lower than the 221, but there's still 3 full more years to go if we consider 25, 6, and 7 for this to be reached as a number. And 75 unique participations are rather close to 90 unique participation. Success rates of South African Horizon 2020 was relatively lower, approximately 20% to the 23.45% of Horizon Europe. And that's an overview of South Africa's trend, so to say, for both participations and budget EU contribution in in framework programs up until Horizon Europe. So South Africa started being involved in the framework program from FP3 up until nowadays, where we see from a budgetary point of view, the trend is rather a regular increase. When it comes to participations, of course, we are on a good trajectory to go beyond the 315 of Horizon 2020. Let's look at thematic areas and see where South Africa is participating the most. You see the top areas, I would say, are the 4 on the left-hand side or the left half of the slide here. Health, certainly, and this includes also participation in European and developing countries clinical trials partnership, joint undertaking, in which South Africa, of course, is a major player. South Africa being, as you know, the hosting country of the Africa office of the ISAP. Cluster 1 is the cluster dedicated to health in Horizon Europe. Then also mobility. Marie-Sklodska Reaction, 30 retained proposal, 30 projects, plus 8 in the process of granting, 38 in total. Then food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, 29 proposals retained, followed by digital industry and space, and climate, energy, and mobility. With different success rates, of course, that are also linked to the overall number of proposals that are submitted. You can imagine that in most cases, the larger the number of proposals submitted, perhaps we have a tendency to have a lower success rate compared to when we have a fewer. In terms of types of actions, in terms of type of projects that are being funded, you can see that a good majority of them are the so-called research and innovation actions, so the so-called RIA. Then they are followed also by the innovation actions, so we're referring more to later stage projects from a technology readiness point of view, but also coordination and support actions, CSA, and co-funding schemes. This slide's based, and apologies for the projects that are not included here due to the limitation of space, the top 12 projects from a budgetary point of view involved in South African entities. And what I would like to stress out, while greeting stakeholders and coordinators coming from these projects, and those who unfortunately I didn't manage to include, what I would like to highlight here is the fact that, as you can see in the column SA participation, one project provides opportunity also for South African organizations to collaborate with each other by having more than one consortium member within the same project. And that's extremely important, not only from a domestic point of view, if I may say so, and of course, through Horizon, we encourage indeed South Africa, within South Africa cooperation across different universities, across different higher education and research institutions, but we also consider, and this is also in the principle of the Africa Initiative, Horizon Europe as an opportunity to enhance intra-Africa collaboration, so for South African researchers to collaborate more with other fellow researchers and scientists within the African continent, and of course, with their European counterparts. As you can see, these projects here, from AfriFood Links to the Agri-Drive, from number 1 to 12 in the top ranking, are focusing on different areas, from food and nutritional security, health, climate, energy, and mobility, Maris-Kroski reaction, mobility, and research infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the types of organizations from South Africa that are participating in the Horizon Europe Framework Program, well, approximately 60% of them are higher education or secondary education and research establishments. This is for the participation, followed then by private entities, private for-profit entities. We will see that also SMEs from South Africa are part of the framework program. So these are the two biggest chunks, so to say, of participation, followed then also by pure research organization, almost 9%, and public bodies. We also know that indeed public agencies such as the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation are indeed eligible for support and funding as part of Horizon Europe, 7.2%. This, when it comes to now the net EU contribution, is pretty much mirrored in what we see in the participation. So approximately 50% higher education or secondary education institutions, research institutions as well, then followed by the private sector, approximately 20%, and approximately 15%, 13%, pure research organization and public funding and public bodies. So we can see that public entities are benefiting from less than 5% of the funding, whereas they're participating in a more conspicuous way with 7.2% of participation. Now let's have a more detailed look, and apologies, it's a busy slide, but I want it to be as inclusive as needed. So all the organizations should be here. We get this data, by the way, from the Horizon Europe publicly accessible dashboard. So all this information is also available online, and our Access colleagues can provide support in understanding how this can be navigated. From the left-hand side, we see the top organizations, so that are indeed the most involved from a budgetary and also participation point of view in Horizon Europe, followed by then the right-hand side of the chart. University of Cape Town is South African #1 institution for participation in Horizon Europe so far. What you can see is indeed 32 participation with 11 million euro of funding going into the University of Cape Town for Horizon Europe projects. And importantly, University of Cape Town is involved also in 2 projects as coordinators. So you see the green bar refers to projects in which an institution is being a coordinator, which is a big administrative task. I would say also burden is not necessarily to be taken or to be automatically read as leading role within a project consortium, because there's scientific leadership that could also be provided through the content. It's certainly an administrative task that requires indeed a lot of coordination also from the budgetary disbursement of the funds across the project consortium member. I will follow by acknowledging the University of Stellenbosch, and I greet here Alison, a representative within the Brussels space of the University of Stellenbosch. So what we have is indeed #2 performance, 23 participation, approximately 8 million euro of fundings, and 2 projects in which University of Stellenbosch is involved as coordinator. Followed by what you can see, WITS Health Consortium, LTD, University of Cape Town Institute, and of course these are spin-offs, if I can use these terms, of the two universities respectively, University of Pretoria, University of Wits-Johannesburg, University of KwaZulu-Natal, and so on and so forth. Apologies for not having the time to list all the institutions that are here. Of course, we are very much concerned about the importance of making sure that the participation is as widespread as possible within South Africa. And as part of this, allow me to also say that in close collaboration with the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation of South Africa, we started also providing additional support to dedicated information sessions around Horizon Europe, also with colleagues from Access Africa, in historically disadvantaged universities, institutions, whose performance we monitor really closely and regularly to indeed see where, what are we trying, what are we bringing in terms of value with our information sessions. And indeed, we can see that already from November 24 to today, really, some increase in trends can be recorded. University of the Western Cape is submitting more proposals, and more proposals indeed are being retained, already moving from such a short such a short time frame from November to May. We see indeed 6 more proposals that were submitted by University of the Western Cape, with 3 additional of them being retained with a success rate that increases. And so 6 signed grants in total. University of Limpopo, University of Venda, and Sefako Health Science University have also submitted proposals, as well as Walter Sisulu University. So far, unfortunately, with no retained proposal, but this is part of a process, of course, and we shall make sure that the 3 universities that are listed that are not that have not a record of submissions yet, and not a record of successful submissions, will be soon bringing some figures in here. When it comes to SMEs from South Africa, they also participated in the framework program, namely 17 participation with 14 unique participations. So it's 14 unique participations in different projects. You see them in here. We see also ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability Africa, that is the top player so far, with 2.39 million euros of funding, followed by the South African Urban Food and Farming Trust, MAA Global, and so on and so forth. So SMEs, including those working in the space of food and nutrition security and bioeconomy, are involved in Horizon Europe projects from South Africa. What are the collaborators? Because this is all about international cooperation and collaboration between South Africa and Europe, South Africa, the rest of Africa, and Europe. So yes, Germany, Spain, France, and Italy, and the Netherlands and the UK are the top 6 partners of South Africa. Apologies, I couldn't list in this slide all the collaborating countries. I could only include the top 30 of them. Well, as you can see, there's quite some diversity. Allow me to say that it's quite striking, at least to my eyes, the fact that the first African collaborating country can be found, if I'm not mistaken, very quickly skimming through, on number 13. And that's Kenya, which followed just South Africa in sub-Saharan Africa. I think it's South Africa, Tunisia, then Kenya and Uganda. And so, interesting figure, of course, colleagues at the Department of Science, Technology, and Innovation, they work bilaterally with other African countries, will be able to better interpret and factor in this finding. Followed then by the other sub-Saharan African country, or the other sub-Saharan African countries that follow are Ghana, and perhaps not surprisingly, Uganda as well. All right, let's get into the final and perhaps most interesting part of the presentation, the Africa Initiative 3. As mentioned before, we're talking about 24 calls for proposals, amounting to a total of 500.5 million euros. They really foster Africa-Europe collaborations. Let me say that all the calls for proposals of Horizon Europe Work Programme 2025 are open to researchers and innovators from Africa. These 24 ones are those that are considered as part of the Africa Initiative 3 because either they encourage or require even participation of African entities. But at the same time, from a topic point of view, they were considered strategically the most pertinent to the partnership and to the implementation of the AU Innovation Agenda. The topics are grouped into these 5 areas: public health, 50 million euros, green transition, 241 million euros, innovation and technology, approximately 190, capacities for science, 3.5, and cross-cutting issues, approximately 20 million euros. By clicking, colleagues, by clicking on this hyperlink here, and you will receive this presentation, you'll be able to be directed to the funding and tenders portal of Horizon Europe, specifically with the 24 calls for proposals that were flagged as part of the Africa Initiative. So
This link will not take you to the overall funding and tenders portal, but will take you to a page where all the calls that are part of the 24 calls were flagged. Let's start with the first call, public health indeed, the only one for public health, in great complementarity with the calls of the Global Health EDCP 3 joint undertaking, European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership 3 joint undertaking. The title is Development of Antibodies and Antibody-Derived Proteins for the Prevention and Treatment of Infectious Diseases with Epidemic Potential. We're talking about 50 million euros with approximately 10 million euros per grant that is going to be awarded. Keep in mind the deadline, colleagues, 16th of September. You will see that the earliest deadlines are for early September. So there's quite some time to, I mean, not too much, but still quite some time to start working on proposals. And I believe colleagues attending today's session, some of them, if not the majority of them, already rolled up their sleeves. Please take a look at the acronyms we're using. RIA stands for Research and Innovation Action. You will find the caption just below. And where we have an E, it means that the participation of African entities, including South African entities, is encouraged. Whenever you see an R, it's required. Then we have the calls in green transition, climate change and sustainable energy particularly. I'm just going to skim through the keywords. Equity and justice in climate policies, sustainable processing and refining of raw materials to produce battery-grade materials, building of long-term African Union, European Union research and innovation joint collaboration on sustainable renewable energies, implementing the climate action pillar of the EU-AU partnership on climate change and sustainable energy, and innovative solutions for resilient and climate-adapted coastal communities in the Atlantic. Allow me to spend some time on the eligibility requirement here. We see just a second. I think I will find this. Yes. Right. So whenever you see indeed a N stand for not particular, Laura, N stand for not particular required. Neutral. Yeah, N stand for neutral. And the reason why we flag this very code that stands for neutral is because indeed from a mathematical point of view, we found this very strategically fitting to the implementation of the AU innovation agenda. It's not the most frequent case. When you see an R is indeed required for the eligibility criteria to have Africa-based entities in the consortia. So indeed do pay particular attention to these two coordination and support actions related to the AU-EU partnership on climate change and sustainable energy. There's a limitation in terms of participation to Cape Verde, Ghana, Morocco, Senegal, and South Africa in the call that is pertaining to the All-Atlantic Partnership on Research and Innovation on the Oceans, for obvious reasons, of course, because of the work that's been done in this particular Africa-Europe partnership. So keep this in mind and consider that. Whenever there's a requirement, of course, it's a no-brainer that Africa-based research and innovation entities, including from South Africa, should be in the project consortia. As we move to the other area, we are in the area of cooperation on food and nutrition security and sustainable agriculture. And here, that's either encouragement, so you find E for encouragement of participation of Africa-based entity, or a required participation. So extremely high emphasis on the collaboration between Africa and Europe. In terms of topics, well, I'll go very quickly. Developing the agricultural knowledge and innovation systems, the ACIS supporting the FNSSA partnership, or nutrition in emergency situations, developing innovative phytosanitary measures for plant health, developing agroecology living labs and lighthouses for climate action under food and nutrition security, broadening the living labs approach for soil health in Africa and Latin America and the Caribbean. So here, it's really global collaboration. Please pay attention to the deadlines here. We have a few calls for proposals, 2 of them out of the 5, with a deadline on the 4th of September. And then still on the green transition, water security and biodiversity. We have one for which the eligibility criteria are not too strict, but yet extremely pertinent to the Africa-Europe partnership, additional activities for the European partnership, water security for the planet, water for all. Followed then by an innovation action for which participation from Africa is encouraged, overcoming the barriers for scaling up circular water management in agriculture, extremely important from a topic point of view, of course. And then additional activities for the European Biodiversity Partnership, the Biodiversa Plus, in which South Africa, I understand, has been already historically involved. So this is why it's a neutral from a requirement point of view, but it's certainly very broad. And of course, global rather than just Africa and Europe only. We have then a call from the green transition's less cross-cutting issues because indeed it's about migration and climate. So a very cross-cutting complex topic, building resilience and enhancing sustainability. Participation from African entities encouraged here for obvious reasons. And it's a coordination and support action. Deadline 16th September, 2 million euros. And then one on green transition, innovation and technology, in which case we have EU co-funded partnership on raw materials for the green and digital transition. Co-funded partnership raw materials for the green and digital transition in this case is 90 million euros divided into 2 different time slots, 45 million in 2025 and 45 in 2027. Deadline for the applications is the 23rd of September. It's a co-fund action, so please do indeed pay attention to the specific eligibility requirements. Innovation and technologies, there's several of them. When it comes to the topics, I will just briefly mention indeed cross-border prevention, preparedness and responses to climate extreme and geological events and chemical, biological and radiological emergency threats. Testing new tools for that. Technologies for critical raw materials and strategic raw materials from end-of-life products. Strategic partnership for raw materials, innovative approaches for sustainable production of critical raw materials, and innovative solutions for sustainable production of semiconductor
Yes, hello. This is South Africa. Well, it seems we have lost Brussels, but we are hoping to regain the connection.
Yes, we are waiting for Vincenzo. He will be with us soon. So
Hopefully you can hear us. If that is the case, then let's present again. We're almost done with our presentation. Ahmed, can you confirm you can hear us? Okay.
yes, of course.
Okay, very good. You can
Yes.
see the slide.
Please try to put the full screen.
Sure. All right. Very, very sorry. We've been experiencing some internet connection issues. All right. So what I want to comment as we go back to this slide with the calls for proposals for innovation and technologies is that whenever you see an L in the acronyms here next to the innovation actions, it means indeed that eligibility is limited to cooperation to African and European countries. So you will see that indeed there's further opportunities to be successful by joining these proposals in collaborative consortia. So please do take it into account. Then we move to cross-cutting issue, as I was starting to comment. And this very call is about bridging historical past and future potential through conservation, preservation, and adaptive use of Europe's contentious and dissonant heritage. So it's about indeed cultural heritage. It's a call for which the cooperation is encouraged. It's a coordination and support action, and therefore there's emphasis being put on social sciences, humanities, and culture as broad disciplines. So do consider this. Deadline is mid-September, 3.5 million euros. And last but not least, 2 calls for proposals in cross-cutting issues. One on open topic on improving disaster risk management and governance, broadly enough. And a second one is on open strategic autonomy, economic and research security in EU foreign policy. So in the first call, you will see there are limitations in the eligibility criteria that are favoring Africa-Europe cooperation. The deadline for this call is the 12th of November, approximately 3.5 million euros per grant. And in the second call, from an eligibility point of view, the Africa-Europe cooperation is not required or emphasized. But indeed, from a topic point of view, we believe this indeed can be valuable for collaborative consortia, also to include research organizations from South Africa and Africa in general. Deadline is 16th of September. I think in the interest of time, because of the unfortunate episodes we experienced, I'm going to stop very quickly to say that you will receive this presentation as a PDF. You will find, in addition to the hyperlinks that I presented earlier on, you will find additional resources just one click away within this slide. Please do continue following us through the Access Africa website. You will have a dedicated presentation just right after this one. We are continuing to run information sessions, either in person, either online. We will most probably have a roadshow across historically disadvantaged institutions, but I will let colleagues from the Department of Science, Technology, and Innovation to comment on this. But just do consider us as a sort of go-to community in an enduring way. We're not there to disappear despite the internet challenges. And last but not least, for those of you working in the entrepreneurial space and innovation space and business support organizations, everybody really, I can only invite you as warmly as I can to keep on checking the AU-EU Innovation Interface, which is our go-to web portal pertaining to the innovation agenda, where we'll be advertising very soon the Innovation Fair happening in Brussels on the 23rd of October, with many matchmaking opportunities for researchers, innovators, business support organizations, and investors. Thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. LaRusso. And again, sincere apologies for those technical glitches. For some reason, it seems that the network in our area is a bit challenged today and yesterday. So apologies for that, but I'd like to open the floor for questions that may have arisen. I noted that there's been quite a number of questions that have come in on the chat box, but if there's anyone who wants to engage, and we've lost those questions because of the disconnection, but if there's anyone who wants to come up asking some questions now, I'll open the floor. Any people?
Hi, Edie. Can you hear me?
There's an echo. Can one of your computers be muted, please? It's not ours. Karabo, do you want to try again? Okay. There's also, yes, Karabo.
I've recorded some of the questions on the Q&A. The first question comes from Edward Nelson. Are partners in the United States eligible to contribute as third parties in the Africa-Europe collaborations if needed? And then we have another question from Celeste Yoon. Can Horizon Europe funding be used to establish joint Africa-Europe research hubs or networks that are institutionally hosted in African universities but co-led by EU partners? And then there's a very long question. I don't know if our friend Lucy will be able to respond to it. It comes from Yolande Harley. She says, thank you for this helpful webinar. For EU-funded grants, there is a challenge for African partner institutions at implementation stage that discourages collaboration. This results from potential forex losses arising due to the current EU financial reporting system. It manifests such that at grant closure, the non-EU partner grant is always left either in deficit or cost neutral. This cannot be mitigated through careful budgeting or prudent spending, as it can through many other international grants. Engaging in EU funding therefore introduces a risk of significant financial losses to LMIC with currencies. Can the financial reporting system be re-examined for the Africa Initiative 3 to help encourage engagement in the initiative and support sustainability of African institutions? And then the final question that I recorded comes from Estelle Dauchi. Is the public health EDCTP all open to research in the economies of public health, in the economics of public health, especially research and policy dedicated to the reduction of non-communicable disease prevention via economic policies? Yes. And then there are other questions coming from the chat as well, but let's lead with those ones first.
Thanks, Karabo. I think I'll open the floor to our EU colleagues. Dr. Vincenzo Lorusso, maybe if you could respond to some of them.
Right. Thank you very much, Julie. And allow me to say a big thank you. I saw a message by Leslie. Sorry for putting you on the spotlight. Thank you for your understanding. There was a very kind message in the chat. Thank you for bearing with us and our technical issues. All right. So also let me say all departments, including engineering from the University of Johannesburg, if I read this correctly, all departments across all universities in South Africa are eligible for funding coming from Horizon Europe, whether these are project proposals coming from the Africa Initiative 3 or not. And please, again, do consider there are more than 24 calls for proposals beyond the Africa Initiative 3, to which indeed entities coming from South Africa are absolutely eligible. So no matter the department, no matter the university, no matter the institution,
On the first question on the US, and thank you, Karabu, for listing as much as you could. Yes, so consortium members from the US can be indeed part of consortia, can be joining collaborations. I think the aspect to take into account in the possibility for them to be funded as part of the collaboration. So of that, I don't think this will be automatically the case. But in terms of being part of a consortium, you know, there's in-kind ways to contribute to a project within a consortia. I believe this is possible, and certainly across thematic areas. There were quite a few questions and also in the chat on the emphasis being put on non-communicable diseases and the support in general to health sciences. Now also taking into account USAID drawing support into South Africa. Let me highlight the fact that, yes, there's one topic from Cluster 1 that is part of the Africa Initiative 3. I mentioned this earlier on in the presentation. It's about antibody-based technologies for improving epidemic preparedness. So you can imagine that the title is quite self-explanatory from that viewpoint, puts more emphasis on infectious and communicable diseases. This being said, as I said, look at the Cluster 1 health-related calls for proposals beyond the Africa Initiative 3. There's also a few on non-communicable diseases, and in those, there may be a fit for a South African-based entity to partner with European ones into tackling particular challenges for which the findings can also be of use for the South African community. Let me also say that we have a big EU-funded program that is called European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership, ISAP joint undertaking, that has its own work programs running on a yearly basis. So the next one will be in 2026. And there we are developing more and more the nexus between communicable and non-communicable diseases. So please be on the lookout for those of you who are not familiar with it yet, and hopefully this addresses the question that we also saw. Look at the work program be on the lookout for work program 2026 of ISAP joint undertaking that I think will be coming out, published in the first quarter of 2026. Oh yes, on the foreign exchange aspect, that's a complex one. I wish to thank the colleague for raising as elaborately that aspect. Just to say that I haven't got the solution as I speak, unfortunately. But this is something we are acutely aware. And when I say we, it's not just the European Union, but also our SDI counterparts. And I see a few heads nodding in Pretoria. We are studying ways to address this issue. It's certainly something that we take into account, and you can imagine we also take into account as we work across partnerships within the Horizon Europe space, also beyond South Africa. Of course, South Africa being such a major player within, including in health projects as part of the ISAP and the Cluster 1, it's something that we take into account. We understand this is somehow penalizing participation.
Yeah, maybe if I could add on the exchange one, there's been extensive engagements between the DSTI as well as DGRTD, and we've been also assisted by some of the research institutions in South Africa in trying to figure out a modality in which we could present to the EU. So that is an ongoing thing that we are trying to still work around and negotiate with the EU to see what are the programs that they've done before that can enable us to deal with this challenge of the Forex. So it's an ongoing matter to that part. But another question that I thought would be important, maybe Vincentia, if you could highlight, there was one question talking to what are the common reasons for rejections that you've sort of maybe picked up in some of the proposals from the EU side.
Thank you, Judy. And so let me say that the next presentation by Fana would also help in addressing this important question. But let me also say that in the way I read the question, if proposals are rejected, it's not a rejection to an African entity that is submitting the proposal, because let's consider that the proposals are submitted by a consortium of partners that include as many Europeans, as certainly usually more Europeans than African counterparts or as counterparts from elsewhere. So it's indeed a rejection that is to the project consortia. I think colleagues from Iraq, South Africa will certainly be better placed to expand on this, but I would say that a key element to address this question is to scrupulously examine the eligibility criteria and the description and the background of the topic. So be as fitting as possible on what is expected and what is required, and make sure that indeed your research questions are in line with what is being asked. And also take into account two elements. Number one, a cross-sectoral approach. Over the years, we've been asked, even on topics that are more perhaps in the life sciences or more on the technology part, there should always be a social science dimension. That's extremely important. Look at the cross-sectoral aspects of the research you are proposing. And also make sure, indeed, aspects such as representation of consortium member, gender equality are indeed importantly done justice within your proposal. And make sure that indeed the eligibility criteria are well respected. And perhaps the last point I want to bring up, look at the evidence inputs that you can provide to the policy. Because in a lot of the calls, this is something that is expected, especially in the calls that are very much needed for the implementation of the African Union, European Union policy agenda. I'm referring to the ones on climate change and sustainable energy, for example. So really try to make sure it's very clear in your proposals what is the use that is going to be made from a policy viewpoint of evidence that in a multi-sectoral dimension you are bringing up with your research of your consortium. So the rejection is not to an African applicant by no means, I want to be clear on that. It's to a proposal filed in by a consortium of multi-stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you very much. I think it would be good in the interest of time if we can move ahead with the program. Thank you so much, Dr. Lorusso. I'm going to ask Dr. Yedilfana Mokenen if he can come in to present information tools on researcher mobility and with specific reference to the Euronexus Africa as well as the Mariscolda Curie actions.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you see my slides, please?
We can. Thank you.
Is it visible now?
Yes.
Also can hear me. Very good. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say a very good afternoon, a very good evening for some countries, for the panelists, as well as for the online participants. We are really very happy to involve in this info session on Horizon Europe, particularly on Africa Initiative 3. I think most of you already know about Euraccess Africa, but let me go through very quickly with interest of time. As most of you already know, my name is Elfana Satarge. I'm based at Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I'm also a researcher and associate professor at Addis Ababa University. My colleague Ahmed, he's based in Tunisia. He's also associate professor at the University of Sousse. Both of us work for the whole continent in promoting Horizon Europe research funding, mobility, and networking opportunities to African researchers and innovators. So I'm very brief about explaining the Euraccess Worldwide, as Euraccess Africa is part of Euraccess Worldwide. It is an European initiative supported by European Union, established in 2013, and it evolved over the years, and currently we are around 9 hubs worldwide outside of Europe. One of them is Africa. We have in US, in North America, in Latin America, and many other parts of the world. So Euraccess has an all-in-one networking platform. It's a very popular platform that provides you information and valuable sections in it for talented researchers in Europe and outside of Europe, of course, to move, explore, and develop careers in Europe, mobility and also research opportunities. So Euraccess Worldwide tries to link researchers outside of Europe with researchers who are based in Europe to foster scientific collaborations. And we provide a lot of services, and all of these services are actually provided with free of charge, no charge for Euraccess services. Just to be specific, we provide access to information about research in Europe, in EU member states, on associated countries, of course. We provide opportunities for research funding, including the prestigious Marie Curie School of Curie Actions, the 5 actions: doctoral network, postdoctoral staff exchange, co-fund, and citizen. We also promote European Research Council grants. These are in Pillar 2 of the Horizon Europe. And my colleague, Dr. Vincenzo, very nicely presented with the latest information on Horizon Europe program. At the moment, we are also promoting this to the researchers and innovators in the continent. We also provide practical tips, how to navigate through the Euraccess portal, how to navigate through the EU funding and the tender portal. And this will definitely help the scientific career in Europe to collaborate, to search for jobs, to in the mobility program and in the collaborative research program, for example, in Pillar 2. So we support the international collaboration and transnational mobility opportunities. I will particularly explain about MSc programs very briefly in a few slides later. And this network in Euraccess worldwide is open to all nationalities, to all African, for example, in our case, and to all research field, to all disciplines, no discrimination on the disciplines, and at all career stage, from master to professor, from junior researcher to senior researcher can participate in this program. So as I already mentioned, we built a very big network of researchers. I think it is the world's largest researchers and innovator database. We have at the moment over 140,000 researchers who are regularly informed by a dedicated Euraccess worldwide team all over the world. And among this, close to 20,000 are from our Africa database. We manage this database, and most of you are already a member of this, I guess. So far, since establishment in 2013, we organize over 2,800 events, both physical and online events, including this one. If you consider Euraccess Africa alone, we organize more than 70 online events and more than 50 physical events across Africa. And in addition to the info and the practical sessions, we also publish over 850 news articles, information on research and innovation in Africa, information on funding and networking and mobility on our portal, and we disseminate in our social media. We are also very active in major social media channels, including LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram, and so on. We have also a popular YouTube account. You can get more information from all these things. So Euraccess Africa is among young hub, which established in 2022. As you can see, it's now became a central platform for European Union in Africa research and innovation collaborations. And we will also want to grow more. So as Euraccess Africa, our main responsibility, myself and my colleague Ahmed, is that we manage and develop the Euraccess Africa network. As I already mentioned, we have a very dedicated portal. We have more than 18,000 contacts, researcher and innovator contacts in our database. We send out flash notes and newsletters regularly. We also post news and many other relevant information and research and mobility on our social medias. So we support African researchers in many ways. We provide information, we provide advice and assistance. It's not really easy because we are two, but we represent the whole continent. We have our own strategy to help dedicated and talented researchers in Africa, and also to combine or to connect them with the European researchers. We support career development. We organize grant writing, project management, workshops alongside the info session and the practical session navigating of these very important portals. We promote European research opportunities, and we create awareness on available opportunities in Horizon Europe and other European programs. And last not but least, we reinforcing the networking with all research and innovative African actors or partners who are involving in research and in innovation. As already informed, I need a little bit to focus on Pillar 1 of the Horizon Europe. As already mentioned, it's a very huge public-funded worldwide, I mean, first in the world research innovative program, which is Horizon Europe. The Pillar 1 is about excellence in science. It includes the Marie Curie Action and European Research Council. And we also promote this in addition to the Pillar 2, that is the global challenge competitiveness. In Pillar 1, in Marie Curie, it's a bottom-up approach. It follows the basis of bottom-up approach, and researchers are free to choose their own proposal. Title is not predefined in this case, but as you already heard from Horizon Europe, Pillar 2, the pre-defined topics were launched, but in Pillar 1, you are free to choose the topic that you are interested in to do your PhD, to do your postdoc, and during the staff exchange co-fund and citizens. So this program, the MSA, is named after the famous Polish female scientist, Marie Curie, who won a Nobel Prize in both in chemistry and in physics. And this is a research and training program based on scientific excellence. And it equipped researchers with the new knowledge and the skills through mobility and training.
She died for
so the Horizon Europe Pillar 1 MSA, as already mentioned by Vincenzo, I think I don't need to repeat this. Africa, all African countries, all African institutions are eligible for funding. So it's a very good opportunity to get a benefit out of it. So already also mentioned, so far we have only one African country, which is Tunisia, associated to Horizon Europe. But very interestingly, Egypt and Morocco are progressing very well. I hope in the coming few months, we'll have 2 additional African countries who are associated to Horizon Europe. So the countries in this map, you see the yellow color are third countries who are eligible for funding. As you can see, Africa, all Africans are countries and researchers are eligible to apply or involve in MSA international cooperation programs. So how can Africa participate in Horizon Europe, particularly in this case in MSA, is that we can participate in 3 ways. The first one is funding for individual researchers. As I already mentioned, MSA, for example, doctoral network and postdoctoral fellowships, individual researchers who are professors or assistant associate professors in the universities or in the research institutes can apply to these programs as individual researcher with their own topic or title. What they need to provide is that since this is a Horizon Europe, as a requirement, they need to have a host institute in EU member state or in associated country. Otherwise, individual researcher can apply to this program. And another prestigious program of the Pillar 1 is ERC, European Research Council grant. It has 5 different programs: the starting grant, consolidated grant, advanced grant, co-fund and synergy grant. These are really very interesting if you also participate with your own topic or title from Africa. But you need to have, of course, the hosting institute in Europe or in associated countries. So the EURAccess portal will help you to find the hosting institute. Will help you find the partner institute. We have more than 500,000 institutes who are registered their profile in our portal. So you'll be use this opportunity to search for your partner or for hosting institute in EU member state or in associated countries. So any nationalities are welcome to participate in this individual funding. The other is funding for collaborative research. And again, with a MSc doctoral and postdoctoral, as well as staff exchange, or in a pillar 2, for example, in today's main focus in Africa Initiative 3, we can actively participate, as the requirement is that the minimum requirement is that at least 3 entities from 3 different countries of the European Union, the member states, or from countries associated to Horizon Europe. And at least 1 from member state should be there. Among the 3, 1 should be from EU member state. Plus, if this minimum is satisfied, third countries, including countries from Africa, can involve in funding for collaborative research, including in Pillar 1 and also in Pillar 2. The third and the most easiest one is applicants can submit their application for PhD and for postdoc or for full professorship or any other job vacancies through EURAccess job and funding portal. So in the EURAccess portal, you can find, maybe at the moment I was checking this morning, there are more than 10,000 jobs. This includes PhD vacancies, postdoc vacancies, and professorship vacancies. So these are 3 ways to participate in Horizon Europe as a researcher and as an institute who are based in Africa. So I think Dr. Vincenzo or Busi have nicely presented already these key figures from Africa, from South Africa perspective. I don't want to repeat that, but I would like to say congratulations for South African researchers and institutions, as well as the stakeholders, for your great work and to bring South Africa first from Africa in participation, in submitting proposals, in also in funding, securing funding from Horizon Europe so far. And we also wish you keep up this good work. And for this reason, we also have many programs, including this one that are particularly targeted to South Africa. If I'm going to tell you, particularly the MSA, for example, for African participation, most people think that, of course it is, think that the Horizon Europe programs are very competitive and are really far from submitting the calls, but it's really very promising. As you can see from this number, these are very promising, and it's potentially we can definitely benefit from different programs of the Horizon Europe, including MSA. If you only consider Horizon 2020, more than 2,297 African researchers from 45 different African countries have benefited. This number is not really simple. It's a very huge number. So we can be part of it. So we shouldn't be far from submitting and far from trying to participate in the Horizon Europe programs. When it comes to Horizon Europe 2021 to 2024, we are almost midway of the Horizon Europe initiative. 485 African researchers from 33 countries are participated with 86 projects, 153 participation of 114 different African organizations, which is really huge. If you only consider South Africa alone, 38 organizations from South Africa with 30 projects already contracted from the institute side and 26 projects already signed agreement from the individual researcher side. It's alone for the South Africa, which is really a great number. So these are a very important thing, I guess, because we are telling you to try to give it a try for different Horizon Europe programs, including the Africa Initiative 3. There are also these pillar ones, the Marie Curie actions, the 5-1, doctoral network, postdoctoral, staff exchange, for example. So it starts in already in May, and some of them are, the deadlines are end of this year. So we have, I think, enough time frame, so you should give it a try. But for the latest information, I also suggest you go through, frequently visit the MSA website as well as the EU funding and tender portal for the updated timeline if there any change for some reasons. So MSA in third country in nutshell, universities. I mean, when it comes to MSA, people may think only universities participating, but not. Research institutes, public sectors, businesses, NGOs, small and medium enterprises can also be part of the MSA program. Third countries, like countries in Africa, may receive funding or hosting or send researchers and academic or non-academic or administrative staffs paid by the project to EU member state or to associated countries. Researchers are open to research of any nationality in all scientific research, as already mentioned. Let me go very quickly with the interest of time. The doctoral network condition for organizations, as I already mentioned, this doctoral networks can be submitted as individual researcher or as organization. So these are some of the conditions, some of the criteria that you need to satisfy by organization to participate in this MSA doctoral network. Applications are submitted by international consortium. It's already mentioned by Busi, consisting of at least 3 organizations in 3 different EU member states or associated countries, of which at least 1 must be in EU member state. I repeated this because this is the most important thing, eligibility criteria. And if this minimum requirement is satisfied, then additional organizations from third countries, including Africa countries, can participate, even can host and train researchers who are also coming from Europe or other associated countries. As a researcher can be hosted or trained and supervised in third countries organization for up to 1/3 of the duration of the project. No limitation on age is very interesting, and also nationality. Researchers must not hold, but because it is a doctoral network, it's a PhD program, so researcher must not hold a doctoral degree when closing date of the call. Research apply directly for vacancies, as I already mentioned, in the Euraccess portal. As a postdoctoral fellowship conditions for organization, funding for projects in all scientific disciplines, like what you have seen in doctoral networks. The MSA will provide salary for researchers, mobility of allowance, research and training costs will be covered by the project. Third country organizations, like countries in Africa, can host researchers from periods between 4 months and 2 years. Researchers, for example, it's from a global fellowship, we call it a global fellowship. Researchers in Europe can visit research organizations, research institutions in Africa for 4 to 2 years, according to the application rule, before the end of the program. At the end, they have to actually return back to Europe or associated countries. Europe means EU member states, just to be specific. So organization in any socio-economic sector, as I said, in a doctoral network, universities, research center, public institutions, business, NGO, SME, research infrastructure, and so on, can actively participate in this. When it comes to the staff exchange, it's actually the institute that can apply for this program. So organization applying for international consortium consisting of at least 3 independent legal entities, because it's already the same in all cases in MSA. We have seen in doctoral and also postdoctoral, and again in staff exchange. These are the requirements. So if this minimum is required, then third countries can benefit or eligible to participate in this program. So in the interest of time, let me go quickly. For people involving in staff exchange or researchers involving is maybe pre and postdoctoral researcher can be involved as a staff exchange, can be seconded for 1 to 12 months. in staff exchange in 1 or 7 states. It includes researcher, academic, administrative, technical, and managerial staff. Not only professors, but academic and technical staffs can also be involved in a staff exchange to share experience, to share what have been done in other institutes, in collaborating institutes. Must have a contractual link. It's, I think, the most important thing. Is one of the eligibility criteria. A staff must have a contractual link or have been involved in research and innovation activities at the sending organization. If he is going from Africa in one of African institutes, so he has to link, contractual link with that institute before he participates in a staff exchange. So it is selected directly by participating organizations. The participating organization can advertise it in EURAccess and can select or maybe from their institute can select the participants from that organization. So what kind of tool we use in EURAccess Africa to disseminate information, to provide hands-on trainings? We have this website, EURAccess Africa dedicated website for news and also for events and provide information. We have a social media, we have flash notes, we have information and practical sessions. I already mentioned this in the previous one, but this one is important. I think most of you are already a member of our contact, our database, but if some of you are not yet a member of EURAccess Africa, I kindly request you to sign up for free membership to EURAccess Africa so that you can get very valuable information that actually directly got from European Commission through Dr. Vincenzo and other colleagues in European Commission as a desk and policy officers, from EU delegation in Africa Union, and also from different African countries, including in South Africa. We disseminate many valuable information to research innovators in our database. So if you subscribe it, definitely you will get, will be notified on a daily basis and weekly basis and also in a quarterly basis in our flash note news and quarter reports. So I already mentioned in EURAccess website, you have a section that is dedicated for the partnering, for searching for collaborators. So I think you can also put your profile, your individual researcher profile, your institution profile, so that you can be visible for other researchers who are also applying, and you can get invitation to collaborate with them. So I think you can put your profile. I think it's very good to have your profile in our portal. It's good to have your institution profile in our portal so that you'll be visible. You can also get other institutions profile or researchers profile for your collaboration. This is because one of the challenge of African researchers to establish consortium to participate in collaborative research. So I think EURAccess is really helping a lot in this aspect. So I already mentioned, we also publish news that we get from different sources, including from our program coordinator, who is based in Brussels, and also from different partners. I think one thing that I also would like to mention that we closely collaborate with partners, with EU-funded projects like Enriching Africa, for example, also based in South Africa, I guess, and also work for in many African countries. We collaborate with them. We collaborate with LIPRI, with LIPSI, and other huge or impactful projects in Africa and also in Africa and in Europe. So this is what I would like to say. And another important thing, we are talking about submitting a proposal and increasing our participation in Horizon Europe, right? So this is the right place, and this is a place where you get information, you get a call for proposals, you get a templates, I got many information about the different programs in Horizon Europe. This is EU funding and tender portal. I hope you have account already with this account, with this portal. If not, again, I recommend you to have your account here. And of course, you need to make sure that your institute is also registered in Horizon Europe, in Horizon and EU funding and tender portal. If not registered, if doesn't have a PIC, this participation identification code for your institute, you cannot apply for any Horizon Europe projects or proposal. So I think it's also one thing that you need to make sure that your institutions has already registered in EU funding independent portal and have that PIC number. So any calls that are already open or any upcoming calls, you can get all the kind of information, including the Horizon Europe Africa Initiative 3, as Dr. Vincent is already mentioning. So we'll share all these slides so that you can thoroughly go through and get information. So just give you a highlight in 1 minute. The picture will show or will tell you overall our activities so far since its launching in 2022. We organized several info and practical sessions in Ethiopia and different parts of the country. We have been in Kenya, we have been in Senegal, multiple times in collaboration with European Commission and the EU delegation, different countries. We have been in Cameroon, we have been in Nigeria for a couple of times. Last year, for example, we attended the Nigeria EU Innovation Day along with Dr. Vincenzo. Thank you for inviting us. A mission to Kigali, we have been there and attended a very big event in Rwanda. We have been in Morocco a number of times. My colleague Ahmed was there and provide information and practical sessions for researchers and innovators. We have been in Tunisia. Of course, my colleague Ahmed is already there and he visited many universities in Tunisia. We have been in Egypt more than a couple of times. Of course, we have been also in South Africa. As already mentioned by previous speakers, these historically disadvantaged universities, my colleague Ahmed and Dr. Vincenzo and other colleagues had a chance to visit, I think 3 of these universities, Vala University of Technology, Walter Sisulu University, and the University of the Western Cape. And we also have a plan for this year to visit. I hope we will meet many researchers from these institutions. And myself, I had also a chance to visit University of Wits last year and meet researchers and discuss about EU funding opportunities. So these are the Access Africa physical events for this year. We had already a couple of visits, but we are also planning to go in many, as much as many African institutes this year. And if not this year, we also consider for next year. If you are interested to us to visit you, you can send us a request via our email, africa@euraccess.net. And these are the webinars that we plan for 2025. We had already 3, including this one for this year. And we plan thematic webinars that are dedicated for specific programs in Horizon Europe. As I already mentioned before, we will have MSA Doctoral Networks, a dedicated program, a webinar. We invite experts from European Commission, MSA unit. We also have MSA Postdoctoral Fellowship webinar, MSA Staff Exchange webinar, so that we can clearly discuss and provide you valuable information for those of you who are interested to apply for these programs. We collaborate with the COST. We collaborate with the LIPRI and Enriching Africa and other big funded projects from Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020. So I think if you keep in touch with us, definitely will be benefited and you'll get more valuable information. We organize in English and in French these webinars because, as I already mentioned, we are 2, but the institution in Africa is very big and we are in a big continent. So strategically, we use a webinar to reach as many researchers and innovators in Africa. And so far, we are very successful in organizing this. In the last previous webinar, we had more than 2,000 online participants in our meeting, which is really very interesting and very happy for that. So please, let's build together your Access Africa research community and keep in touch with us and write to us if you have any doubts, any questions with us. Myself and my colleague Ahmed were very happy to interact with you and help African researchers and institutions to participate in Horizon Europe program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mekonnen. Really appreciate that. I'm sure the participants that are with us still in the webinar are have found the presentation very fruitful. And we do repeat, there is a recording of the session today. It's on YouTube, and we've posted it, the link on the chat. You can be able to access. It's live, and post the live, it will remain there, which you can also access to check some of the details. But most importantly as well, we're going to have the presentations and everything else put up and sent to yourselves. You can access them on our website, which will lead us to inform you now about the next platform where you can get all the information that we've presented today. I have Ms. Anita Mnisi, who is our Deputy Director from the department. She's going to present to you about the ISAP platform. Ms. Mnisi, are you available?
Good.
We heard you for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Judith. I had sent my slides to Ahmed. I'm not sure if he's able to assist in projecting them, or I can just go ahead and speak from my laptop. Oh, thanks. Okay, good afternoon once again to the colleagues and our stakeholders joining us from online. As introduced, my name is Anita Mnisi, and I'll be presenting on the ISAP platform. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first slide basically looks at the overview of the SA-EU cooperation. I believe that some of the previous speakers have already touched on this. So I'm just gonna run through it to go straight to the ISAP part of it. So basically the ISAP platform that is run jointly with the department is to increase participation of the national system of innovations in the EU funded programs, such as the framework program, which is now called Horizon Europe. It's a dedicated platform which enhances, promotes, and coordinates and supports the NSI to achieve the increased participation by our South African researchers in EU programs. So ISAP was developed as a coordination and support action funded by the EU framework program and the department. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide basically focuses on how ISAP has evolved throughout the years. It was previously known as the Strengthening of the European South African Science and Technology Advancement Program from 2006 up to 2013. Basically, throughout those years, it was focusing on awareness raising, which includes information sessions, which I'll speak about a bit later on. And then it evolved to ISAP Plus 2012 to 2015, and then ISAP 2020, and then ISAP 2021 onwards, currently referred to now as the Strengthening Technology, Research and Innovation Cooperation between Europe and South Africa. Next slide, please. So basically, even now, we still focus on more or less the same, which is increasing awareness and through information sharing session, strengthening cooperation in science and technology between SA and EU researchers. So as mentioned before, the aim is to promote, facilitate, and coordinate the research, development and innovation cooperation between SA and EU in areas of common interest. So some of these areas that ISAP focuses on are areas that were mentioned under Pillar 2 by Vusi on his presentation. So the objectives enhance basically RDI cooperation under programs such as Horizon Europe, as mentioned, enrich and facilitate policy dialogues, which can include workshops, basically those platforms that encourage dialogue between South African researchers and European researchers, fosters innovation partnership, which the Horizon Europe program basically encourages that in terms of the calls that are launched. We encourage, it's a consortium kind of setup, which it encourages partnership between SA and European researchers. So it promotes a greater coordination and synergy between SA and Europe. Next slide, please. So basically, the platform it's for support, under which we also have the DSTI support instruments. So all the work of the department that has to do with the SAEU collaboration can be found under the ISAP platform. So under the support instruments, as already mentioned, we have got the awareness raising information session, which we have got the website which post any kind of event that we have. We have information sessions such as this one, and then workshop, and then marketing materials such as exhibitions, which we normally have during Science Forum and when we do information sessions at universities. We also have advisory and technical support, which we have the national contact points that have been appointed by our department. You can find those on the website as well. So the NCPs, it's the number of NCPs under the different thematic areas that have been mentioned under Pillar 2, which is you've got health, climate, agriculture, energy, and so forth, mainly the areas that are also covered under Horizon Europe. We have the ISAP help desk with the email already mentioned, put there. It can also be found under the website as well. And then we've got the Brussels office, which is occupied by Ms. Udima Buza, our program director for today. So basically, she helps us identify opportunities in Europe, and is also available to assist universities and research institutions that travel to Brussels to look for collaborative opportunities as well. And then we have financial support, mostly under seed funding for SA researchers and innovators to participate in project finalization and meetings and other international events, which is the cooperation on science and technology cost. Then we have co-investments in approved projects for implementation, which are proposals that are submitted under the Horizon Europe calls, under the biodiversity one, under the Emiranet one, and water for all. So under cost, the department funds travel costs for researchers to participate in cost actions. So there's a separate website for cost, but all this website can be found under the ISAP. There's a tab that has got the different funding opportunities. So what the department requires for cost is an application form, which also can be found on the website. It's an invitation from the post action chair, and then the department will also take care of the daily allowance, which is calculated based on the department policies. A letter of support from the institution confirming that the institution will benefit and also support the participation is also required, and also quotations for a 3-star hotel. So with course, I encourage participants to go onto the ISAP website under opportunities and go under the cost tab, because it's a bit of a process, because institutions are required to be part of what we call cost actions, which are basically in different thematic areas. So one needs to be a member of a particular cost action to be able to participate in cost action activities. Next slide, please. So with regards to upcoming event, the department will be hosting the annual Science Forum from 24 to 28 November 2025, and the calls for proposals is currently open. I've put also the website to the Science Forum South Africa website. So you are also encouraged to apply for thematic sessions so that you can participate as well. I believe this is the last slide on upcoming events. So most of the information, like in terms of the programs that I mentioned, Water for All, Biodiversa, and Emiranet, can be found on the website, and the calls for those for Biodiversa and Water for All will open in September 2025. Of course, we will post on the ISAP website, and also will share an email and reminder email to those that are already subscribed on the ISAP website. Next slide, please. So we've got the ISASAP website there as the first one, and also the website to the Horizon Europe programs, also the Eureka network, and also COST. So we encourage participants to subscribe to the ISASAP email so that whenever we post opportunities, they'll get a notification and will always be aware of the upcoming sessions and also the calls that are currently open that are of course supported by the department. And I believe this is the last slide. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mnisi, for the inputs. And I think in the interest of time, we'll try to be a bit quick on the last section of today's information. And we're going to touch on just some reflections, specifically from the South African National System of Innovation. We have reflections by Dr. Vincent Clark, who will come in, and then quickly after that, we'll have Ms. Janet Laforge coming to also present, and then concluded by Ms. Tugela Matubatuba Dlamini.
All right, thank you, moderator. Can you hear me okay?
Very well, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share a little bit of our experience in one of these European African funding partnerships. We were funded by Biodiversa in the previous cycle, which has now just come to an end. And that was our first European South African funding partnership in this regard, and it was absolutely fantastic for us. It was fantastic for our partners, and I'll just briefly highlight some of the things we learned, what we experienced, some very minor challenges, and I think the angle I've got really will hopefully help some of the former homeland campuses on South Africa. I'm from the Kwakwa campus of the University of the Free State. We sometimes are classified as a previously disadvantaged campus, sometimes not, but I think a lot of our experience will certainly help other target campuses in South Africa in that regard as well. So I'll quickly jump into it. Next slide, please. All right, so I think the first principle that we learned really was that it helps to be part of an existing network. And we were invited as the Afro-Montane Research Unit at UFS Kwakwa to become part of the Mountain Invasion Research Network for this, before an application. And that really helped give us a global network that we could be part of. It helped build trust, it helped build relationships, going into a very big, often complicated proposal. Next slide, please. So there you can just see some of the member countries of the Mountain Invasion Research Network. So it's a network that focuses on invasive species in mountains globally. And it really is a truly global representation of researchers. So that helped provide a framework for kind of these multi-partner consortia. Next slide, please. Okay, so Range X, next slide, please. This was led as a consortium by Switzerland. Prof. Jake Alexander from ETH Zurich was the overall PI for the consortium, and he really has been a fantastic leader for this project. He's really been very accommodating, inclusive, very generous, very understanding of the complex challenges of multiple countries and their local contexts. And that really helped. This is just a little bit of the science background, really aligned to what the Biodiversa call was at that point. So that was 2019, 2020, that call, and obviously speaking to very current global issues with very strong local impacts, and mountains obviously being the context for that as one of the parts of the world that are changing more quickly than others. The high latitude and mountain areas are changing faster under global change regimes than many other systems. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's the red X's are all the rank X consortium members. We're the only African participants in that project, but we have 6 continents here represented in the consortium, so that's a really nice global distribution of data and partners. Next slide, please. This was task 1.1 really, which was just kind of the glitzy flagship with these open top chambers that look quite space age. So that was kind of really one of the flagship images of the project. Very good for marketing, which is a very important part of these big projects. Next slide, please. So this is just a little bit of context to where this project was in South Africa. So this is Kwakwa with the Maluti Drakensberg in the background, and a lot of our tasks were here on top of the Drakensberg. And then one of the tasks, 1.3, was a little bit further west in the Clarence Conservancy. All of them logistically very complex. But a very important thing for African partners really is to think about what is your value proposition to a consortium, and particularly to European partners. And our value proposition here really was, firstly, we were the only African willing partner in this particular project. We already had a strong set of local relationships that could enable something this logistically complex. So doing something on top of the Drakensberg is not that simple. But we had all the partnerships in place. And we also had a bit of a track record of good local ecological study, and that being able to translate into local impacts as well. So we had already a good set of dynamics locally that enabled us to participate in a global consortium like this. The next slide, please. This is just what it looks like on top of the Drakensberg. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, and then just some of the benefits. Firstly, we weren't a very big team on this side. This is the team except for one, Prof. Grant Martin from the Center for Biological Control, who was also part of the team. He wasn't on the previous trip overseas at the end of last year. But we weren't a big team. Sometimes it feels like you need to have massive teams in South Africa to do these projects successfully, but a small, good team is better than a large, discoordinated team. And the benefits really have been multiple. We've had really strong capacity building in the team, early career researchers, postdocs. Lesecha Malakana in the middle there received a Swiss scholarship to do his PhD in Switzerland, following on from this project. So we're really proud of him. So this partnership really sets him up for that. Yeah, and a number of other benefits in terms of career, women in science, empowerment of a former homeland campus, etc., etc. Okay, next slide, please. Also better representation on global platforms in the mountain community globally. Next slide, please. And then obviously very strong platform to be able to feed into policy in South Africa. So we did a policy brief to 2 South African ministries with a transboundary aim, leading hopefully to a SADC-linked Southern African Mountain Treaty in future, and obviously linking a lot of the research we did to the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a very high priority both for South Africa at a policy level and also SADC at a regional level. And mountains are critical to achieving a lot of these SDGs, particularly around water and biodiversity, the bioeconomy and other aspects. Next slide, please. And I'm just going to go very quickly through these. This project managed to leverage off a whole lot of other opportunities. We were able to establish the first alpine research facility in South Africa, if not in Africa. And by overcoming climate extreme challenges for fieldwork on top, as well as security challenges, we've been able to create bait for future collaborations that have already started to come together. for alpine research in an area that really is undergoing rapid climate change related impacts. Next slide, please. That's just a little bit about the base. Next slide, please. We've established an LTSER, a long-term social ecological research platform, building on that as well. Next slide, please. As well as a set of weather stations. And then, Ahmed, if you can just skip maybe just down to the second last slide. Yeah, just one up. So basically, I think what has really helped with this, getting this first big grant, it's helped us to almost have a cascade effect for other grants. So the Norwegian partners in the Range X project reached out to us to ask if we'd be interested in a bilateral application between Norway and South Africa, which we applied for and we were successful, and that builds on the Range X project as well as a whole lot of other components that are novel, and this would be our first transdisciplinary project that we as a unit have managed to achieve. And then just the last slide, please. And then this is just obviously an opportunity to say thank you to DSTI for enabling us to apply for that with the partnerships with the EU Biodiverse platform, and a number of other partners, particularly local partners, Witsisok Mountain Lodge, the Tlokwe Traditional Authority, all our service providers that we wouldn't have been able to do this without. So really kind of a nexus of local relationships and partnerships between Africa and Europe really made this possible, and obviously a really great team. So really big thank you to the EU and the DSTI for setting up these partnerships that can benefit us here at a local scale. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Can we ask Janet and Catherine to come in as well to present on the MSCA? Are they available?
Hello, yes.
Great.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeanne Laforge, and I'm a doctoral candidate in the Eco2Wine project, part of the Marie Sklodowska-Curie doctoral network, and I'm currently based at the Stellenbosch University. Eco2Wine focuses on sustainable winemaking and is funded by the Horizon Europe. And the project brings together 10 PhD candidates across Europe and Africa. And we are trying to bridge science, business, and communication all together. And today I will give you a little insight into our journey. So each of us had the opportunity to create a little video with Jive Media and to share our motivation and give like faces to the people who are behind the research. And here's mine. Do you hear the sound or not? Yes. Yes, but beyond this video, there is a lot more going on. So Eco21 is truly interdisciplinary, and we are trained in science, in business, and in communication across several universities, and through collaborations with also industry partners. But that it's a lot of advantages, but it also means that there's a lot of time pressure with all the secondments and trainings. 3 years for a lab-based PhD is ambitious, and sometimes even 3 months of secondments, for example, in a new lab isn't enough to produce strong data for lab-based PhDs. And yeah, we travel a lot, which is good, but it's also honestly a lot of work balancing a PhD with constant mobility and adaptation, and communication is hard work. And the EU could maybe add 6 months of salary payment for a writer period to mitigate this amount, yes. But despite that, I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and what helps is actually also the funding. It allows us to train, to collaborate, and build real international networks. That support is what makes this kind of PhD more attractive and possible, actually, also. And there are still different real challenges. Like, for example, I needed to get a visa to come to South Africa. And it really wasn't easy to get. And administrative hurdles like that do slow things down. Another point is that the cost of living adjustments may not always reflect local realities. So Stellenbosch, for example, is much pricier than other cities in South Africa. And also, but that's what we already talked about, because universities here operate in rand, there's a risk of currency fluctuation when the budget arrives at the university in euros. However, I believe the more programs like this exist, especially across Africa, the more these barriers will shrink, making collaboration smoother for everyone. And yeah, to sum it up, I can just say that I'm truly grateful for this opportunity. And if you're curious to follow the journey, or if you have any questions, here are 2 QR codes linking to our Instagram and LinkedIn page. And yes, thank you for listening. I hope that those experiences like this become the norm and not the exception. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. Our next presenter will be Tugela, right?
Yes, good afternoon, colleagues. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much, UD. It's so exciting to follow on those 2 very exciting testimonials from the colleagues from Free State and Stellenbosch University. But I won't take much time. So Ahmed, if you just flight my 1 slide. It's always interesting because I'm on the other side of the table, sharing opportunities. So to reflect as one of the national contact points, it was quite an interesting journey. But I wanted to ride on what the colleagues have said. Most of them have shared what I've captured on this 1 slide. In 4 parts, just to say, I think my role as the national contact point, I've been able to see a great impact regarding the National System of Innovation. Ever since I've joined this team in 2012, we've seen there's an increased participation in the framework program in general. We've also seen that there's increased awareness of how the opportunities work. And I think one of the lessons learned from the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation is the integration of the National Contact Point network within the institutions in the National System of Innovation, which has sort of forced us to work together with our entities as well as the government departments. My colleague Vusi mentioned the roadshows that play a very important role in us sharing the information. And I want to confirm that we still plan to conduct those, hopefully with our colleagues from the EU joining us in person. in South Africa, and will not only target historically disadvantaged institutions, but will also try to cover most of the institutions in the country. I've put there 3 policy documents, which is leading to my second point, which I wanted to share regarding the DSTI role. To say it's always important to align national policies with the EU policies when we think about implementing these programs. And we've also seen a very strong policy dialogue and the implementation thereof of the recommendations through our ISAP platform. I mean, with a recent visit from the DG RTD in South Africa in November last year, I think that was quite an exciting opportunity for us to engage with him as his first visit in the continent. The DSTI has also been instrumental in creating that enabling environment and also understanding what type of support instruments are needed by the South African NSI to participate in these programs. Anita mentioned the twinning opportunities, seed funding and co-investment opportunities that we afford through ISASTAP. The appointment of the National Contact Point Network. We have a new network. I think most of them are joining the webinar, and we do plan to continue working with them and conducting the sessions together with them. DSTI has also participated in a number of coordination and support actions that Vincenzo mentioned. And I think it was a learning ground for us as well on how these EU programs work, so that we can also create those support instruments that can assist the researchers. Not forgetting our sister in Brussels, the moderator for the session, who is the main contact point for the DSTI office in Brussels. She plays a very critical role in ensuring that our partnership with the EU remains strategic, and we find reciprocity in implementing our programs. The third part I wanted to also touch on in my role as the NCP and the assistant NCP was how the information also filtered in the whole continent. I was able to also visit a few countries, Cameroon, the Gambia, Mozambique, to name a few, to share my experience and lessons learned as the national contact point, and also share how the DSTI has set up the network and also providing support. I think Vusi mentioned tapping into the bilateral cooperation with our African member states, not only those, but also EU member states and associated countries, how we find synergies and enhance cooperation also using the EU funding programs. So that's quite critical and instrumental. The last point is my personal development growth. I think I've seen an increased knowledge of these programs, how to implement them, how to manage them. I think the two colleagues before me mentioned the creation of networks, how important it is to maintain and keep those networks. And the good networks actually are the ones that will assist you in getting good proposals approved by the EU. I think the trick is to look at the eligibility criteria. There is quite strict rules there. The little mistake you make, you will be penalized on that. So it's good to have a look on the eligibility criteria and make sure that your proposal is of good quality. I've also seen working together, we can't do it alone. I think we've also seen with the effects of COVID pandemic that we need each other to tackle global challenges. And I've learned that through these networks. And also there's been quite a career growth and new opportunities that I've seen. I wouldn't mind also to get a new job somewhere. But yeah, that's a topic for another day. But in that, UD, I think I will stop there, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tugela, and for also assisting me as the moderator and program director in trying to catch up with the time that we've lost. A quick last slot where I'll just do 5 minutes of a Q&A just so that we can give the last round for maybe any pertinent questions that may have not been covered, but also in the reflections that have just been presented now. if there are any questions from the audience, we would gladly welcome them. And if maybe Karabo can come in to assist me on that part as well. I've seen some positive comments that have come through that talks to the session being very good. And I've noted also the posts that have been made on the ISAP website. And then, Karabo, I think the mic is muted.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. I don't see Dr. McConan on the line, but there was a specific question following his presentation. I'll just read it. Perhaps Ahmed can respond. On individual awards, you mentioned PhDs, postdocs. Does your access also find early career transitions to research independence? For example, after postdocs, and also is basic science infectious diseases also supported? Another question is, will there be additional opportunities to submit proposals for various calls beyond September 2025? This is quite a short deadline considering the scope and level of consortium required to be successful. And then I'll read the last few, two questions that we received just now. Will any of the Africa Initiative 3 calls explicitly support free funded or co-funded masters and PhD fellowships or arrangements between African and European universities? And lastly, are transdisciplinary approaches and research clusters focused on social science, law, and governance, such as climate justice, environmental law, human rights, rights of nature, and just energy transition, explicitly encouraged under any of the core topics? I'll stop there.
I just got a feedback from Vincenzo. He says he responded to the last two on the chat. So they were attended to. I think the one that we need to attend to is the one on Euraccess, specific on the early career transition. If we can ask the colleagues, Ahmed, to come in and to advise, and Yadil Falna.
So, hello everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. Just want to say that with your access portal, we communicate about opportunities. So you can connect and you can see we have more than 9,000 opportunities. Start from master degree, PhD students, doctors, and senior researchers. So we communicate about opportunities. We don't give fund. We communicate about Horizon Europe. We give practical tips. We try to assist African researchers and African innovators to be there, to get the opportunity from Horizon Europe, and not only for this program, but if there are some bilateral program from some countries in Europe and South Africa, we can promote that. This is our main mission in Euraccess Africa. And don't hesitate to contact us. We are available, and africa@euraccess.net. This is our email, and you can contact us anytime, and we'll try to assist you and give you all informations.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, for that, and for the clarity as well, that you are a platform that provides the information that is linked to all the EU programs, and to ensure that Africa and Europe are connected and are informed on some of these programs that exist, especially under the Horizon Europe framework. Without delay, if there's no more questions, I think I will take the honors, and in the interest of time, to wrap our session. I will ask my colleague first, Pencho, if he can come in to give us some of the concluding remarks. Pencho?
Well, thank you very much, Eudi. I think we are reaching almost 3 hours since we started this webinar. So I can only imagine that people would like to wrap this up very quickly and go to other occupations. I have been myself very energized by seeing the huge amount of participants that have shown an interest about the next work program of Horizon Europe this year. And I have to say, I'm very much looking forward for this first deadline that will be on the 1st of September to see the number of applications that we have received. Also very important for our partnership, South Africa, European Union, to see the composition of those applications so that again, one point that I think cut across the session is to see how science cut across all the research community. So for myself, just to say a big thank you and a huge appreciation to all the participants, huge appreciation also to you, Eudi, as moderator, as well as all the colleagues in the embassy of South Africa in Brussels, to my dear colleagues in the Directorate General for Research and Development. Great to see you again. And of course, the colleagues here in Pretoria, the European Union delegation and the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pencho. And I think I will not take any of your words away, but compliment all the huge thanks that you've provided to all the colleagues, but also a huge thank you to you for joining us today and noting that you have a very busy schedule and you are able to support us and be here with us in listening also to some of the interesting questions that have been raised. And there may not be much solutions to all of them, but there is a willing interest on us to enable the two systems or the two parties to be able to collaborate. And the enablement is now showcased in the whole Africa Initiative 3, which is a strong commitment from the European Union to show its interest in Africa and in assisting also the partnership between Africa and Europe. So we greatly appreciate this. And thanks to Ahmed and your team as well for enabling that we are connected. And apologies, great apologies on the disconnections, and I have to blame it on the Belgian network. Not only the problems are in Africa, but we appreciate your presence, and we really thank you so much. Please be on the lookout on the YouTube if you want to access some of the recording, but also be on the lookout on the platforms to get the details of the presentations. And we really are looking forward to seeing you apply. As the saying goes, you can take the river to the water. We expect now the horse to the river, but now we expect the horse to drink the water, which the onus is on your side. I thank you. And we can adjourn the session. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you all very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.